Hello all, and welcome to my channel. I'm Ravenlaced, and today I'm going to be reading you the preface to The Way of Zen by Alan Watts. I'm going to be reading each chapter and posting them on here on my channel if you want to follow along. Also, I have chapters of Tank Girl Armadillo, and I've also got other videos if you're interested. Please throw down a subscribe, hit that like button, take a seat, and let's get reading. I just gotta say before I start this, I absolutely love Alan Watts and I love his speeches, and this is what got me into wanting to get this series. So this is not going to be the only book I'm going to go over from him. This is just the first one I'm gonna start off with. And without further ado, let's get into it. By the way, isn't this the cutest little thing? My local bookstore, Nevermore Books, was selling these, and they are just absolutely the cutest fucking things in the world. I love them. It's a book holder, and it holds your book as you read. And I'm that kind of person that doesn't like the feeling of the paper on my fingers, really. Like, I can handle, like, you know, going through the papers, but like holding on to the paper is not my favorite thing. I like the feeling of the back of the book, right? So this is just perfect for me because now I'm not having to touch the paper, and it makes it easier. Isn't that cute? I love inventive stuff. I'm sorry. I'll keep going. Sorry. Too happy. During the past 20 years, there has been an extraordinary growth of interest in Zen Buddhism. Since the Second World War, this interest has increased so much that it seems to become a considerable force in the intellectual and artistic world of the West. It is connected, no doubt, with the prevalent enthusiasm of Japanese culture, which is one of the constructive results of the late war, but which may also which may amount to no more than a passing fashion. A deeper reason for this interest is that the viewpoint of Zen lies so close to the growing edge of Western thought. The more alarming and destructive aspects of Western civilization should not bind us to the fact that at this very time it is also in one of its most creative periods. Ideas, insights of the greatest fascination are appearing in some of the newer fields of Western science in psychology and psychotherapy. Sorry. In logic, some of these words, I'm like, I gotta fucking really... In logic and in the philosophy of science, in semantics and communications theory, some of these developments might be due to suggestive influence from Asian philosophy. But on a whole, I am inclined to feel that there is more of a parallelism in the direct influence. We are, however, becoming aware of the parallelisms, and it promises an exchange of views which should be extremely stimulating. Western thought has changed so rapidly in this century that we are in a state of considered confusion. Not only are there serious difficulties of communication between the intellectual and the general public, but the course of thinking and our very history has seriously undermined the common sense assumptions which lie at the roots of our social conversations and institutions. I love Alan Watts. He's so fucking deep, man. He's so deep. Let's go deeper. Familiar concepts of space-time and motion, of nature and natural law, of history and social change. Let me get this fixed. Okay. And of human personality itself have dissolved, and we find ourselves adrift without landmarks in a universe which more and more resembles the Buddhist principle of the great void. The various wisdoms of the West, religion, philosophical, and scientific, do not offer much guidance to the art of living in such a universe. and we find the prospects of making our way in so trackless an ocean of reality rather frightening. For we are used to absolutes, firm principles and laws which we can cling for spiritual and psychological security. This is why I think there's so much interest in a corollary productive way of life, which for some 1500 years has felt thoroughly a home in the void, and which not only feels no terror for it, but rather a positive delight. To use its own words, the situation of Zen has always been above, not a tile to cover the head, below, not an inch of ground for the foot. I swear to God, I have the worst cotton mouth in my fucking life going on right now. Woo! Alrighty. Such language should not actually be so unfamiliar, where we truly prepare to accept the meaning of the foxes have holes and the birds of air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. I'm not in favor of importing Zen from Far East, for it has become deeply involved with cultural institutions which are quite foreign to us. But there is no doubt that there are things which we can learn or unlearn from it and apply our own way. It has special merit of a mode of expressing itself which is an intellectible or perhaps a baffling to the intellectual as to illiterate, offering possibilities of communication which we have not explored. It has directness, verve, and humor in a sense of both beauty and nonsense, at once exasperating and delightful. But above all, it has a way of being able to turn one's mind inside out and dissolving what seems to be the most oppressive human problems into questions like, why is a mouse when it spins? And its heart, there is a strong but completely unsentimental compassion for human beings suffering and perishing from their very attempts to save themselves. There are many excellent books about Zen, though some of the best are out of print or otherwise difficult to obtain. But as yet, no one, not even Professor I'm gonna say this wrong, Suzuki, has given us a comprehensive account of this subject, which includes its historical background and its relation to Chinese and Indian ways of thought. I'm sorry, I had to look into this a little bit because I was like, what the fuck? But I'm realizing that Alan Watts was probably around the 70s era. Yeah, now I'm realizing he's more around the 70s era, definitely. I want to say, when did he die? I don't remember. Shoot. Oh, this is going to bother me. Okay, hold on. Oh, he died in 73. Okay, so I would say late 60s era. Okay, that makes a lot of sense because some of the stuff he's saying in here, I'm like, well, we've gained a better mutual understanding and knowledge of a lot of these things now, I feel. But back in the 70s, yeah, maybe not as touched on as much. For sure. So a lot of what I'm reading makes sense now. Alright, I'm going to keep going. Just had to reiterate what when he was alive and when he was giving his speeches and writing these books. I was just curious about the timeline in which this was all going down on. So now that we have a clear understanding, I'm just going to go. There are many excellent books about Zen, though some of the best are out of print or otherwise difficult to obtain, but as yet, blah, blah, give us comprehensive, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The 3 volumes of Suzuki's essay in Zen Buddhism are an unsystematic collection of scholarly papers on various aspects of the subject. Enormously useful for the advanced student, but quite baffling to the general reader without an understanding of general principles. His delightful introduction to Zen Buddhism is rather narrow and specialized. It omits the essential information about the relation of Zen to Chinese Taoism and Indian Buddhism, as is in some respects rather more mystifying than it need be. His other works are studies of special aspects of Zen, all of which require general background and historical perspective. R.H. Blythe's Zen in English Literature and Oriental Classics is one of the best introductions available, but is published only in Japan and again lacks the background information. As a series of rambling and marvelously perspective observations, it makes no attempt to give an orderly presentation of the subject. My Own Spirit is Zen is a popularization of Suzuki's earlier works, and besides being very unscholarly, it is in many respects out of date and misleading. Whatever merits it may have in the way of ludicrousy and simplicity, Christmas Humphrey's Zen Buddhism, published only in England, is likewise a popularization of Suzuki, and once more does not really begin to put Zen in its cultural context. It is written in a clear and sprightly fashion, but the author finds identities between Buddhism and Theosophy. I'm gonna fucking have moments here in life. My grammar needs to be worked on, which I feel to be highly questionable. Other studies of Zen by both Western and Asian authors are of more specialized characters, or are discussions of Zen prose of something else. Else psychologically, art, or cultural history. Sorry. A moment with that, I was like, what? What is the what? Is it about the what of the what of the what? He's just going on. All right. In default, then, we're going to default. Just hold on to your horses, because it's a big deal. How much is the fucking preface? Okay. I just wanted to find out how long the preface was. It was like 17 fucking pages long. In a default, then, of a fundamental, orderly, and comprehensive account of the subject, it is no wonder that the Western impressions of Zen are somewhat confused. No shit. Sherlock. Sorry. Despite all the euphemism and interest which has been aroused, the problem then is to write such a book. And this I have tried to do, since no one who understands the subject better than I sees willing or able to do so. Ideally, I suppose such a work should be written by an accomplished and recognized Zen master, but at present no such person has significant command of English. Furthermore, when one speaks from within a tradition, and especially from within its institutional heresy, there is always apt to be a certain lack of perspective and grasp of the outsider's viewpoint. Again, one of the biggest obstacles to communication between Japanese Zen masters and Westerners is the absence of clarity as to difference of basic cultural premises. Both sides are set in their fucking ways. That they are unaware of the limitations of their means of communication. Perhaps then the most appropriate author of such work would be a Westerner who has spent some years under a Japanese master going through the whole course of Zen training. Now, from the standpoint of the Western scientific scholarship, this would not at all, for such a person, would have become an euthanist and partisan, incapable of an objective and disinterested view. But fortunately or unfortunately, Zen is above all an experience, nonverbal in character, which is simply inaccessible to the purely literary and scholarly approach. To know what Zen is, and especially what it is not, there is no alternative but to practice it. He means to meditate. And especially, oh, I'm sorry. Oh my God, I lost my. To what Zen is, and especially what it is not, there is no alternative but to practice it, to experiment with it in the concrete so as to discover the meaning which underlies its words, the words. Yet such Westerners as have undergone some of the special type of training followed in Rizai Zen tend to be cagey and uncommunicative on the principle that those who know do not speak, those who speak do not know. Although, however, they do not put up, they do not completely shut up. On one hand, they would love to share their understanding with others, but on the other hand, they are convicted that words are ultimately futile and therefore, furthermore, under an agreement not to discuss certain aspects of their training. They begin, therefore, to take the characteristically Asian attitude of come and find out for yourself. But the scientifically trained Westerner is not without reason and cautious, skeptical fellow who likes to know what he's getting into. He is acutely conscious of the capacity of the mind for self-deception, for going into places where entrance is impossible without leaving one's critical perspective at the door. Asians tend so much to despise this attitude, and their Western devotees even more so, that they neglect to tell scientific inquirer many things that are still well within the possibilities of human speech and intellectual understanding. To write about Zen is therefore as problematic for the outside objective observer as it is for the inside subjective disciple. In varying situations, I have found myself on both sides of the dilemma. I have associated and studied with the objective observers, and I am convinced that for all the virtues, they invariably miss the point and eat the menu instead of the dinner. I have also been on the inside of the traditional heresy, not Zen, and I am equally convinced that for this position one does not know what dinner is being eaten. In such a position, one becomes technically idiotic, which is to say, out of communication with those who do not belong to the same fold. It is both dangerous and absurd for our world to be a group of communions mutually excommunicate. This is especially true of the group. I'm sorry. That sentence didn't really. It is both dangerous and absurd for our world to be a group of communions mutually excommunicate. This is especially true of the great cultures of the East and West, where the potentialities of communication are the richest and the dangers of failure to communicate the worst. As one who has spent somewhat more than 20 years trying to interpret the East to West, I have become increasingly certain that to interpret such phenomenon as Zen, there is a clear principle to be found. Followed. Jesus, I'm having a moment. I'm going to stop smoking so much weed before I read Alan Watts. This is an intricate thing to read when you're a bit stoned. Holy Moses. Right in the middle of recording. Hello. Hi. How's it going? So I'm only recording right now. It's all this cool. Yeah? You silly sweet thing. Okay. Alright, kitty. Hello, kitty. Say hello to Echo. He has a little issue with his poor ear over here, buddy. He's so lovey, Mori, and just wants to say hello to everybody and be a jerk. So, hello, Echo. But he needs to go. I'm going to. Oh, get it. Yeah. It's like purring. He's like, no, I don't want to go. Try to get back to it. On the one hand, it is necessary to be sympathetic to the experiment personally with one way of life to the limit of one's possibilities. On the other hand, one must resist every temptation to join the organization, to become involved with its institutional commitments. And its friendly, neutral position, one is apt to be disowned by both sides. But at the worst, one misrepresentations provoke them to express themselves more clearly. For the relationship between two positions becomes far more clear when there is a third from which to compare them. Thus, even if this study of Zen does no more than express a standpoint, which is neither Zen nor anything Western, it will at least provide that third point of reference. However, there can be no doubt that the essential standpoint in Zen refuses to be organized or to be made the exclusive possession of any institution. If there is anything in this world which transcends the realities of cultural conditioning, it is Zen, by whatever name it may be called. This is an excellent reason for Zen's not being institutionalized, and for the fact that many of its ancient exponents were universal individualists who were never members of any Zen organization and never sought the acknowledgement of any formal authority. This then is my position with respect to Zen, and I feel I should be frank with the reader in a day where there is so much anxiety about people's credentials or qualifications. I cannot represent myself as a Zenist or even as a Buddhist, for this seems to be like trying to wrap up and label the sky. I cannot represent myself as a scientifically objective academician for with respect to Zen, it seems to me to be like studying birdsong in a collection of stuffed nightingales. I claim no rights to speak Zen. I claim only the pleasure of having studied its literature and observed its art forms since I was hardly more than a boy, and of having had the delight of informal association with a number of Japanese and Chinese travelers of the same trackless way. This book is intended both for general reader and for the more serious student, and I trust that the former will be tolerant of the use of such technical terminology, a Chinese character, apodix, and other critical asperatus, most useful for those who wish to explore the subject more deeply. The book is divided in two parts, the first dealing with the background and history of Zen, and the second with the principles and practice. The source of information are of three types. I have firstly used almost all the studies of Zen in European languages. Naturally, I have made more considerable use of the works of Professor D.T. Suzuki, but at the same time I've tried not to rely upon too heavily, not because of any defect in them, but because I think readers are entitled to some more, by way of fresh viewpoint and mere summarization of his views. Sorry. Secondly, I have based the essential view of Zen here present upon a careful study of the more important of its early Chinese records, and with special reference to the is going to be Hisse Ming and the Ta Ching of Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch of Lin Chi Lu and Kusu Hushu, I don't know how to say that one. HSU. I'm sorry, the full thing. KUTSUN HSU, then YULU, Yulu. My own knowledge of Tang Dynasty Chinese is certainly not enough to deal with some of the finer points of literature, but significant, I think, to get what I wanted, which is a clear view of the essential doctrine. And all search associates of the American Academy of Asian Studies, and I wish in particular to express my thanks to Professor Sarbro Haswega, and Jiming Xin and Dr. Paul and George and Dr. George Fung and Dr. Frederick Hong, Mr. Charles Yik and Mr. Kazumitsu Kato, priest of the Soto Zen school. Thirdly, my information is derived from the larger number of personal encounters with teachers and students of Zen spread over more than 20 years. In the following pages, the translations from the original text are my own, unless otherwise indicated. For the convenience of those who read Chinese, I have supplied the following bibliography and apedex of the original Chinese form of more important quotations and technical terms. I have found these almost essential for the more serious student. For even among the most highly qualified scholars, there's still much uncertainty as to the proper translation of Tang Dynasty and Zen texts. References to this appendix are very subscribed index letters in alphabetical order. Oh, look, it's right there. See? References to other words are by the surname of the author and number, directing the reader of the bibliography for full details. Scholarly readers will have an excuse for me not using the absurd diacritical marks in Romanized Sanskrit words such as these are merely confusing to the general reader and unnecessary to Sanskrit, who will at once call to mind the denography script. Okay, this is very confusing, but basically, for the more serious student who's reading this book, it's the pronunciation of some of these Chinese words. And he wrote consonants, vowels, diphthongs, and combinations, so you could just understand them a little bit better and probably read them better, and I probably could stand to study that a bit because it would help me with the pronunciation of some of these words. But anyway, that is the end of the prefix. The next chapter will be chapter 1, the philosophy of the Tao. Thank you all for joining me and reading The Way of Zen from Alan Watts. I'm really enjoying this book, and I'm going to be enjoying going through all of the chapters together with you here on my channel of Ravenlaced. Oh, that was very enjoyable. Lose your mind and find your soul. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you around. Have a good one.